Hey, Jude. Hey, Jude, can you unmic or unmute, I should say? I don't want you to unmic because we need your mic. Can you unmute, Jude? Would you be so kind to lead us in the pledge tonight?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Ready? We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right.
Okay. Everybody here?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag.
United States of
We're
America,
doing this now.
To the flag.
And to the republic.
one nation, under God,
Under God,
indivisible,
and the liberty
with
and justice for
and
all.
justice.
That's horrible.
I got 7:28. Are we early?
I guess we're a little
Really
early. Sorry
early.
about that. At least we got our.
Oh, that's okay.
And Mr. Gordon has started recording. And Mr. Gordon, we just did the pledge, just so you know.
Okay, for roll call this evening, we have Jay Grover, trustee, Nicole Novak, trustee, Glenn Bobeck, trustee, Sue Marston, vice president. We have Robin McCreary, trustee, Ashley Dreyer, I'm Ashley Dreyer, president. We have with us Dr. Ruby Harris, assistant superintendent for business and finance. We have Cheryl Cardone, assistant superintendent for pupil personnel, or I'm sorry, assistant superintendent for, oh my gosh, help me out, Cheryl. I'm like,
It's okay. Yeah,
student service, sorry. for student
Sometimes
service.
Cheryl forgets too.
I do, Ashley.
Special education services, and I think that's it, right? Do we have Joy with us? Yep, it's 7:30 now. Do we? I think that's everyone then.
Yep. And I don't see Joy yet. Do you guys see her?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, July 27th, 2020, please.
I'll motion.
And a second.
Aye.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. If I could have an approval of the minutes from July 6th, or motion to approve the minutes from July 6th, 2020, please.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
And a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections?
Ashley Joy just joined.
Okay.
I saw that.
Okay, Joy, we just made a motion to approve the minutes from July 6th, 2020, and we had a second. And we will call for all in favor of that.
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any nays? Motion carried 7-0. We do
Joy
not
just
have
called.
any. Oh. Okay, that would be 6-0 then. Motion carried 6-0. We do not have any recognition or good news for this evening. Public comment session, agenda items only. Nothing for that. Nothing under curriculum and instruction. That will move us to personnel, instructional. If I could have a motion to approve instructional PI 1 through PI 4, please.
I'll motion.
And a second.
I can second.
Okay, thanks, Jay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections?
We
Any
do.
abstentions?
Sorry, Ashley.
Motion carried.
No, we don't have. I thought you said do we have
Motion carried. No,
My bad.
no, motion carried. Is it 6-0 or was Joy able to join us? 6-0? Okay. Motion carried 6-0. And I'll move over to Dr. Graham to help us with the introduction.
Thank you, Ashley. I apologize for that confusion.
Welcome.
I know we have some introductions tonight. maybe we could start with Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Everyone, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Miss Leanne Wills. Leanne is joining Veronica Connor Middle School as our new CTE, Career and Technical Education business teacher. She's a graduate of Buffalo State College with an initial certification in business teaching, and we're really looking forward to her involvement in creating a vibrant business program here in the middle school to really complement the high school business program that's already up and running. And really, aside from her skills, which were showcased in the interview process, she has a keen sense of awareness for what a middle school student needs. And that was very evident in her entire interview process, especially during this time when our students haven't been back to school in quite a while. So congratulations, Leanne, and we certainly look forward to having you a part of our program.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be a part of Grand Island School District, so thank you again.
That's great. Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like Mrs. Dunbar, I think you have a few introductions today.
I think I may have Catherine DeCou. I don't see her, but I think she's on. Catherine is joining us as a special education teaching assistant in the kindergarten co-teach classrooms. And Catherine has quite a bit of experience and has children in the district as well. So she's very familiar with us, and we're very thrilled to have Catherine joining us this year. I think she goes by Kate. I don't see I don't see either of my other folks here tonight.
Katie, would you like to say hello to the board? I see you're on. If you just want to unmute and say hello, that would be great.
There we go. Okay. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm really excited to be a part of Grand Island School District this year. And actually, I'm at a Grand Island House baseball team game right now. So I'm doing this from my inside of my car.
That's great. Well, don't forget to stop at Adrian's afterward.
Right.
Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Good. Let's move on to Felicia.
Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Mrs. Melissa Nesselbeck and Mr. Brett Finnan this evening. I'm going to begin with Melissa. Melissa will be our new special education teacher at Kegabyne in our third grade co-taught classroom. Melissa grew up on Grand Island, and she currently resides on Grand Island with her husband and 2 children. She was hired in 2006 at Grand Island as a teaching assistant. Congratulations, Melissa. We're excited to have you at Kegabyne.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be a permanent member of Kegabyne.
Congratulations, Melissa.
Thank you.
I also have the pleasure of introducing Brett Finnan this evening. Brett will be our long-term substitute for our 811 classroom at Kegabyne for the upcoming school year. Brett started his career as a teaching assistant for special education in Buffalo, and then he relocated to Brooklyn, where he taught both physical education and special education. Congratulations, Brett. Welcome back. We're excited to have you at Kegabyne.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to join the team.
Great. Congratulations, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Palacci. Are there any other introductions tonight? All right. Thank you, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. It's nice to see new faces and also some old faces that are back with us. We're happy that you're part of the Grand Island family. Congratulations. Moving on now to personnel, non-instructional. If I could have a motion to approve non-instructional PNI 1 through PNI 3, please.
A motion.
And a second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0. And now we'll move on to finance with Dr. Harris.
Okay, so I have a couple of things on today's agenda. There is A, which is 2 obsolete buses or buses we would like to be declared obsolete. So that's coming from the transportation department. We also have the certification of the school tax budget and tax rate. I always like to point out where we estimated the rate to be, which was $20.09 per thousand. And it actually came in based on the assessment of Grand Island to be $19 and about 78 cents. So that's always nice to see it actually be less because that means it's less of an impact for the taxpayers. So that is on here. And then there is also budget transfers that are over 15,000. 2 of those deal with the capital project area, and the other one is a new code dealing with the pandemic. That way we can follow all of our purchasing in one account code. And we are transferring $65,000 in there. You will see that some of the transfers actually coming from summer help areas, since we were not able to hire students like we have in past years during the summer. We have transferred those funds to be used to offset costs from the pandemic. And also some of the transfer came out of an architect fee area as well, which we put that money there for things that pop up in capital area. So since we have a capital project going on, I'm pretty sure that will take care of that. So we're moving those funds. I do anticipate there to be transfers in the future, but we thought 65,000 would be a good start to be able to buy some of the supplies and PPE needed for the start of the school year. So those 3 are action items.
Thank you. If I could have a motion to approve finance A and C, please. A, C, please.
I can motion.
And a second.
I can second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0.
D and E are pertaining to the financial information. So you have the treasurer's report for April and May, and also the revenue status report. And then F is budget transfers under 15,000.
Thank you. Moving on to special education with Cheryl Cardone.
Good evening, everybody. If I could please have action on my program recommendations for my special ed programs, please.
Okay, motion for A and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried.
I think the
7-0.
dog might have objected, but that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have nothing under policy this evening, so that brings us to the superintendent's report with Dr. Graham.
You can
Well, hello, everybody, to our board and
hear this now. So.
members who are watching us through our live stream. I welcome everybody. I have a pretty extensive superintendent report, so please sit back, and we have a lot of information to share. The first thing I'm going to talk about is just the COVID-19 update, which I've been doing at every board meeting. It's just a recap of what's going on in the COVID-19 world. In Erie County, there have been 198,125 residents who have been tested for COVID-19. Of those tested, 8,177 are confirmed cases. In addition to those confirmed cases, there have been 663 tragic deaths as a result of this infection. Additionally, just for our board to know, as of today, there have been a total of 124 individuals on Grand Island since last March who have tested positive for COVID-19. With respect to more COVID-19 updates, I want to thank our high school administration as well as our custodians and cleaners who all did an amazing job hosting the Erie County antibody testing that was done here last Thursday by the Erie County Department of Health. They were amazing. They were very organized. They serviced over 500 people in that day, and they did it really well. And it was very, like I said, very organized, and it ran very smoothly. So thank you to all those who helped make that a reality. There are 4 more days left before every superintendent in every district in New York State has to submit our plans for reopening schools. I would like to thank all of the members of our committees who have worked hard to plan for the reopening. There are a total of 146 individuals who have served on our committees, which included parents, students, community leaders, teachers, SRP, confidential clerks, supervisors, administrators, and various board members. So last week, Wednesday, I took a draft copy of our slide deck, our slideshow on the reopening of school, and I narrated that in a 15-minute window. The tool that I use only allows for 15 minutes, so it was a little rushed near the end. But that video was sent out to all of our employees and staff last week, Wednesday, and there were about 640 employees who watched that video. On Friday, I sent the same screencast video out to all of our parents. Today, that video has 3,241 views, 640 were employees, 2,601 were from parents. So we're certainly trying our best to communicate within our community. On Friday, I sent out a second parent survey. Our first survey we sent out was at the end of June, and at that time we had 1,700 people who identified themselves as parents complete the survey. The second survey I sent out on Friday with very similar questions. And this new survey, we have, as of today, 759 parents who have responded to that survey. So what I'd like to do is take a moment and show you some of the results in that survey as they stand today. I will be turning off that survey more than likely tomorrow, but I just wanted to show you the results of that survey. So I'm going to ask Ashley. Ashley, just tell me when my screen is showing.
Hey, it's up. Yep.
Okay, great. So as you can see, as of right now, there are 765 people who've responded to the survey. And of the 765, we can see that 45% of the parents have 1 child in our district, 40% have 2 children, and 11% have 3 children. And then 2% have 4 children, and we have a few parents who have 5 children in our district who've responded to the survey. You can see that at the high school, we've had 290 parents respond as high school parents, 273 as middle school, 238 at Sidway, 185 at Huth, and 143 from Kegabine. The first question, I believe in-person school should resume as normal in September with some new procedures to reduce the spread of illness. You can see that 50% of the respondents strongly agree with that statement, and 10% agreed with that statement. It's important to note that the agree and strongly agree is less than the first time we sent out the survey. The first time it was about 70% agreed or strongly agreed. So from the end of June to now July 27th, people are having, at least 10% who were in this category have shuffled off into other categories. 84 people are unsure, 55 people disagreed, and 156 strongly disagreed with in-person school should resume as normal. In this slide, it says, I believe in-person school should resume in September with half of the students attending school on any given day and the other half of the students virtually learning from home. You can see here that, well, we'll start over here, that there were 108 people who strongly agreed with that and 94 who agreed with that. So, obviously 200 of the 765 respondents We have 23% of the respondents, or 183 parents, are kind of neutral. They're unsure or neutral at this time. And then you can see that there's 34, 54, 59% are in the disagree category for this. Again, very different response to the half of the students attending school. And then I believe school should not resume in September, and all students should continue using distance learning technologies until a vaccine becomes available. There were 101 families or parents who said they strongly agree with that statement. 44 parents agreed with that statement. 85 or 11% are unsure or neutral. And then 80 parents or 10% disagree, and 455 or close to 60% strongly disagree. So as you can see, about 70% strongly or disagree with this statement. And then here 60% agreed with school should resume in September. So I can tell you as we go through this presentation and information, we're going to be recommending a hybrid approach to opening school in September. Some other information here: I would transport my child or children to help reduce the number of students on a bus at any given time. There were 320 parents who strongly agreed with that statement, and 113 agreed. I am comfortable with my children being transported every day to and from school on a deep, clean, sanitized bus with regular volumes of students. 287 of the 765 strongly agreed, 92 agreed. What is your expectation regarding student athletics, performing arts, and extracurricular activities if students return to school in September? This statement is, I fully expect these events to be provided. So that was 403 of the parents, or 52%. I'm concerned about students participating in events like this. 34% of the respondents said they were concerned, and 16% of the respondents said they would not allow their children to participate in those activities. What is your expectation regarding student athletics, performing arts, and extracurricular activities if students return in September? I know it's the same question, but the response is different. I fully expect parents and the public to attend. 40% of the people said they fully would expect all parents and public and grandparents to attend those events. A greater number of people said that they were concerned that they would only expect parents to be able to attend, and 20% of the respondents said no fans should be allowed to attend. And again, let's see, did this, okay, there may have been a duplication here. So as we move on, would you commit to providing your own transportation to school and back home every day for your children? And again, here we have 347 people indicating yes. And then there were 431 comments. So I just wanted to share that with the board. Does the board have any questions about the survey?
Nope.
I had one question. Could it be taken more than one time? I know that there were some questions about that from community members last time, or there were some comments that the survey was taken multiple times by the same people, or they were concerned about the results based on that. Is this something that you could take more than once, or could you?
Yeah. Let me do this pretty quickly. So you can see the screen right now?
Yes.
All right, I'm just going to move quickly because it has a lot of parent information on it. Just pay attention to yellow. When you see yellow, just pay attention to that. Yellow means that people took it multiple times, whether it was a mom and a dad who submitted or just one person who submitted multiple responses. So I still have to go over this, but as I'm moving quickly, can you see yellow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's not a big number, Ashley.
Okay.
When I looked at it over the weekend, when I looked at it, I don't know if it was Sunday or Saturday, they all mixed together. There was maybe 20 indicators like that. There's probably more today because I haven't had a chance to look at the rest of the results. So in some cases, I know there was one parent who did it 3 times in a row, and some of the highlighted in yellow means that a mom and a dad did it for the same family.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. So thank you for taking a look at the survey results. Next, what I'd like to do with the board in my superintendent report is share with you a capital project update. Let me just find that for everybody. All right.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Before we move on, when will we see the details of our hybrid instruction?
Today, right? Today.
Okay,
Okay. Yep.
thanks.
You bet. Ashley, is that showing on the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So Jim Rosler and Campus Construction worked together to provide the board today with an update on the capital improvement project. So I want to thank them for doing that. First and foremost, the Kegabine roof is expected to be completed in August. Quite a bit of the work is done already, and they're still working on some existing drip edge and fascia to complete and some other work here. So we can see that they've done a nice job with that. Because the gates are closed in the back of the property at 4:30 every night, a lot of people probably haven't seen pictures of what's going on back there. But the athletic complex is underway. There's been site layout and topsoil has been stripped from that area. Storm water retention drainage and structure assembly and backfill is ongoing. Scoreboards and sports lighting and foundation drilling is ongoing. The foundation for the concession building will be started in August, and other work will continue through the fall. So you can see some pretty good work is going on with the multi-sports complex. As you may have seen, maybe the tennis courts have all been removed. Demolition is complete. They're grading and working on drainage and asphalt and so on and so forth. Fencing and new tennis court athletic surfaces are scheduled for August. Courts to be substantially complete for the district's use in September. As many of you know, the demolition of the existing glass block wall in the pool is complete. Jude and John Pedlow took those glass blocks and made beautiful mementos for our graduates, and Eric Cahoon helped design them with vinyl. So all those items are gone and the demolition is finished there. The new wall board is being installed. Ceramic tile and vinyl graphic will be installed in the upcoming weeks, and the area to be substantially complete for district use in September. This picture was hard for me to orient myself to. At first I thought it was upside down, but it's not. So I just haven't been in that space in a while. This is outside of that pool wall. This is the space for the new storage equipment area that's on the outside of the pool. And in between that new addition where the new gym is. So that space, this used to be a floor where it was kind of like a courtyard almost. So they're working on that area, excavating, working on foundation work, and so forth. And that construction is expected to continue through the fall of 2020. The high school auditorium sound booth is expected to be completed in August 2020. Demolition and utility roughing in is complete. The new booth walls will be framed. HCP seating pads have been poured. Sound booth millwork scheduled for August. Adjacent seating will be expected in the fall of 2020. And the auditorium to be substantially complete for the district use in September. So one of the things that the board should know is that there will still be work occurring in the fall in this auditorium space, particularly with the acoustical enhancements on the walls. But all of that work will be done in second shift. So the auditorium itself will be available to our music program as needed. This is the work that's being done near the middle school main entrance. I'm sure everybody has seen quite a bit of demolition, and the addition to foundations are being formed and poured. Structural steel is expected in August. Temporary construction measures to be in place prior to the start of the school year to allow for limited access through that entrance. Construction will continue through the fall for glazing, storefront work at the entrance, and interior construction for the new main office area. So this picture represents the foundation of the extended main office that'll butt up against the work that's going to be done on the other side of this wall. There's quite a bit of work being done in every class, or most every classroom in the middle school for ventilator work. They've already done the demolition, and the rough-in is complete. Wall lamination behind the new univents and radiation is complete, and some of this other work will be occurring. Classrooms will be able to use them for the start of the school year. This is the middle school nurses suite. Again, demolition and rough-in is complete. Wall framing, I don't know what GWB is, has been installed. Interior finishing is scheduled for August, and the suite to be substantially complete for the start of the school year. Here we have the high school main entrance. Expected completion is December. Temporary shoring is occurring. New floor drain has been installed. Structural steel is expected in August. Temporary construction measures to be in place prior to the start of school to allow for limited access through that main entrance. And construction will continue in second shift for the glazing and storefront work. This is the new high school music wing and toilet room. The demolition is complete. Plumbing and roughing is ongoing. This is a picture from inside one of the classrooms with the new plumbing being installed. Temporary construction measures to be in place as needed to allow for use of the adjacent classrooms while toilet room will be finished during second shift. Schedule is being pushed to allow for use of the toilet room in early to mid-September. This is the Youth Road kitchen, toilet, and locker room HVAC. Expected completion is August of 2020. Demolition has already occurred in the kitchen and the toilet and locker room area. Utility rough-in for the new kitchen equipment is ongoing. There's work being done, whatever CMU means, on the walls at that toilet and locker room, and all work to be substantially completed by the start of school. For the Sidway cafeteria, expected completion is August 2020. They've worked within the crawl space and basement to abate as complete. Demolition is completed at the cafeteria. New ductwork and soffit construction is ongoing. Roofing, structural steel, and equipment setup will be started and scheduled in August, and all work to be substantially complete by the start of school. And that's all that I have in this report. Does the board have any questions?
Nope.
All right. All right. So right now what I'd like to do is go through a slide presentation of the reopening of schools as part of the superintendent report. All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to move past our mission statement and just remind everybody who's watching tonight that we have guiding principles for the reopening of schools. And first and foremost is to consider the safety and wellness of our students, employees, to respond to the needs of our vulnerable and high needs populations, and to be adaptable and flexible whenever possible. That our plans should allow us to move between hybrid and 100% in school, or hybrid and everybody home. So we have to be flexible. I want to also point out that the plans that will be put on our district website and submitted to the New York State Education Department on Friday and the governor's office are subject to change. And so that's also very important, because as we move through this COVID-19 pandemic, there may be needs that the district identifies later in August or September or October, November, that we may need to modify and make changes to our plans. Additionally, this plan represents kind of a depth and breadth of people weighing in. I'll go over that shortly. And it also is a matter where we understand that we need to consistently communicate with all of our stakeholders to ensure success as we move through this process. We're very fortunate to have had 12 task force committees meeting since June to help develop these plans. John Fitzpatrick worked with our lead nurse, Sherry Steffens, to identify all of the areas where we need to be at our best as it relates to the safety and health of our employees and our students. Teresa Lizade and Jim Rosler worked on the Transportation and Facilities Committee. Additionally, Pat Smith will be submitting a plan for food and nutrition in the next day or so. Mike Gloria and Denise Dunbar led the Teaching and Learning Committee. Chris DeMarco led, along with Jessica Hutchings, the Social Emotional Wellbeing Committee that focuses on students and staff. Cheryl Cardone led the Special Education Task Force. Robin Kwiatek and her group have been working on digital equity. John Patak, our Director of Labor Relations, has been working with this group to fully understand how all of our plans interrelate with our employees. Ruby Harris has been working with the Budget and Finance Committee, because every decision that we make as it relates to reopening schools has a budgetary and finance impact on our district. And Felicia and Max have been leading the Bilingual Education Committee, which focuses on students who come to us with English as a new language and how we can assist that population of students to continuously improve. I had the pleasure of working with our parents. We had 2 meetings in July, and we had a really nice group of parents join us for those meetings. And these parents represented stakeholders from all of our buildings. I also had the pleasure of working with community leaders twice in July. As you can see, there's a really comprehensive list here of community leaders. Greg Butcher is the Deputy Commissioner of Homeland Security for Erie County. Scott is the principal at St. Stephen's. Of course, you see the names of our town council and supervisor. In addition, Eric Fiebelkorn, our Chamber of Commerce president, some board members, and some youth ministers and leaders in our churches all had a hand in helping to provide feedback for these plans. I also had the pleasure of meeting with students from the middle school and students from the high school on Friday, and had an opportunity to share with them and listen to their feedback with respect to these plans. So thank you for taking the moment to look at all of the different individuals and stakeholders that have had a voice in this. As our board members know, and maybe the community, the governor announced on July 13th that there would be a formula that he would use to decide the reopening of schools by region. For schools to be reopened, a region must be in phase 4. And as citizens of New York State and Erie County, we all know that we are in phase 4 right now. He also said that the infection rate in that region must be under 5%. If the rate were to go up as high as 9%, or above 9%, I should say, the schools, he said, would be closed. So under 5% schools are open, above 9% infection rate schools are closed. He's going to make that announcement in the first week of August. Additionally, he's going to be looking at a 14-day rolling average of the infection rate to make his determination. I believe today the Western New York region is around 1%, maybe slightly lower than that, but around 1%. And for closing, he's going to be looking at a 7-day rolling average of the infection rate. So every superintendent in every district across New York State is responsible for developing 3 plans. One plan is that everybody returns to school. Another is that we use a hybrid approach. And another is that kids are home if the infection rate is above 9% and we're all participating in distance learning. Today, the slides that I'm going to show you represent our plans as they are for Plan A and Plan B, or if we were told that it was okay to have 100% of the students in school, we could flip a switch and be ready to do that. Or if we need to be hybrid, we're ready to do that. And today, my recommendation is that we are opening schools in that hybrid mode. And I'll go over that in great detail as the slides move forward. So some of this may be redundant, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but clearly health and safety is first and foremost. And additionally, our district plays an important role in educating our students, our employees, and the community about how we can participate in preventative actions to mitigate or reduce the spread of COVID-19. On our district website today is a website that Greg Fox and I were working on. It's grandislandschools.org, and then there's that / and the word reopening. So anybody can go to our website, punch in grandislandschools.org / reopening, and begin to see that we're building that webpage as early as today. By the way, our plan, when it's posted in the portal for the New York State Education Department and in the governor's office portal, will be on this website for people to see. So this plan is going to follow information on health checks, hygiene practices, social distancing, PPE, limiting the number of visitors on school grounds, the management of ill persons, and cleaning and disinfecting. So first and foremost, the health checks. It's incumbent on the district that all of our stakeholders, our parents, and our employees understand the range of symptoms that are currently attributed to COVID-19, and that those symptoms can appear in a 2 to 14 day period if somebody was exposed to somebody else with the virus. With respect to those symptoms, fever and chills is first and foremost. If somebody has a temperature of 100 degrees or greater, it's incumbent that everybody or that person stay home, whether they're an employee or a student. Other symptoms of coughing, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle and body aches, headaches, new loss of taste and smell, a sore throat, congestion, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea are all common symptoms identified as of July 13th as attributed to COVID-19. So the big message here is stay home. When you're sick, stay home, whether you're a student or an employee. Sherry Steffens also wanted me to make sure that everybody is aware that there are other emergency warning signs that we should just always be aware of. Anything that relates to the trouble of breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion, inability to wake or stay awake, and bluish lips and face are also obviously extreme warning signs of an emergency. Any student or staff that are exhibiting these symptoms will be brought to the health office. Of course, they shouldn't come to school, but they will certainly be assessed by the nurse, and there will be a determination made to send that person home. With respect to health checks, we are looking and investigating using a thermal temperature scanner in each of our nurses' offices. It is really a remarkable device. As soon as you walk into the nurse's office, The thermal scanner is a camera that that just scans your face and registers a temperature. I want to give credit to John Fitzpatrick and Sherry Steffens, Dr. Ellenfield, and Cheryl Cardone in a meeting that we had as a group. When we talked about this topic, our new assistant principal, Adam, really came up with an excellent idea. Because this thermal temperature scanner will scan every temperature, regardless if it's in the low 90s or above 100, the software emits a tone that would alert the nurse to a temperature, whether it's a positive alert or a negative alert. Adam came up with an excellent idea to limit the range of the temperature setting because the software allows you to do that, so that there is just a negative alert that the nurse has to listen to when people walk past in her office or walk past to be scanned. So this is really excellent technology, and we're very pleased to be able to add that to our nurses' suites. Any questions from the board up to this point? Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, it's really important. The guidance indicates that parents should participate in a health screening at home. They should screen their child at home before their child is put on a bus or is dropped off at school. I am working very closely with Robin Kwiatek, and we're developing a digital form that we would like to use as a tool for parents to do that health screening. Some districts are taking a passive approach to this. We're taking a more active approach. So let's see if I can switch to that health screening form. Ashley, let me know when this screen is ready, if you can see it.
It's up.
Okay, great. Now, keep in mind what I'm going to show you right now is in draft form, and it's not necessarily created for parents yet, but it'll give you an understanding of what the expectation is of parents who are getting ready to send their child to school. This, where it says health screening form, will be individualized by school. So one might say Huth health screening form, another one might say Kegabyne, and so forth. Remember that these directions are always going to be true. If you answer yes to any of the following screening questions, you may be instructed to leave the building. I wrote this for an employee. Particularly if you answer yes, a parent should not send their child to school. So when the parent begins to fill out this digital form, they can do it on their smartphone or phone or tablet or computer. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say yes, which is a bad response to, are you experiencing any flu-like symptoms, such as respiratory distress, cough, or fever, or chills? I'm going to say no to this item. Are you or any member of your household under quarantine? I'm going to say no to this item. Within the past 24 hours, have you been in contact with someone who is COVID-19 positive? Understand that this form will say parent or guardian first name, parent or guardian last name, and then there will be another section for student first name, student last name. And then these questions will be written so that the parent reads it as they're answering it for their child. When the parent hits submit, there will be an alert, right? If you answered yes to any question, you need to keep your child home, call the school nurse, and perhaps talk to your pediatrician or physician. So now I'm going to, what I'd like to do is go to my email, and I'm going to share this tab. This is my work email. Ashley, just let me know when the screen is visible.
It's visible.
All right. If the board could see that immediately you see my name, Brian Sean Graham, because we're testing this with my personal account. You can see that it says under subject, notification, yes response. That's very important. You can see that this notification was sent at 8:16 and it is 8:17 right now as I talk to you on looking at my computer. And you can see that I filled out this form and I indicated yes, okay, and I indicated no, and I indicated no. So So imagine you are the school nurse, and in your inbox, you have a notification that a parent answered yes to one of those screening items. That is a significant response. And we, of course, are reinforcing with their parents not to send their child to school. But now the school nurse knows that somebody indicated yes, and that school nurse will work with the principal and or the attendance clerk and or the homeroom teacher or transportation to understand if that child is on his way to school. The other thing, go ahead. Somebody has a question.
Yeah, Brian, one question. So what would be the protocol for that student then returning to school? If they answered yes one day, would they need a doctor's note to return the following day, or?
Yeah, excellent question. So the first and foremost, somebody with persistent asthma or allergies might have congestion, right? Might have, a runny nose, and some of those symptoms are actually listed as possible symptoms of COVID-19. So if I was the school nurse, I would reach out to that parent. Hey, I see you said yes for one of these symptoms. What symptom, did you indicate yes for, right? Oh, well, my daughter, has asthma and, she was having trouble breathing, but she used her inhaler, but it's still, blah, blah, blah. The nurse then in consultation with the parent might say, oh, it sounds like, something different's happening, right? My child has a fever and has a persistent cough. So the nurse will use her judgment in conference with the parent to determine whether or not the parent has reached out to their pediatrician. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to show you one other thing. Oh, go ahead.
Guys, yep. Will they be able to fill this out for multiple children at one school, or each child fills one out individually?
Yeah, sadly, the only way we can figure this to work right now is that the parent fills it out 2 or 3 times if they have children in 2 or 3 buildings. The reason why is because the nurse gets the data that you see on my screen. Can you see the spreadsheet and the reds? So this is my test data. So you can see here, well, let's just go down to here. On line 34, this was me just a few moments ago indicating yes, okay? Here you can see Dr. Ellenfield, our chief medical doctor, use this form on the 23rd. But what's important, I think, Nicole, your question, is when the nurse, when the nurse at Huth is looking at all of the entries for day 1, right? The nurse can just scroll down, and this will do an automatic count of the number of people who have successfully submitted a survey. So if the nurse has 400 students in her building, but 300, or let's say 25 children are absent, so she should be expecting that 375 parents filled out the survey, right, for that child, for the children in that school. But if she does a count and she sees that it's only 300, right, and 75 parents didn't, that is incumbent on us as a district to communicate better and to make sure that parents understand the expectations. As parents fall into this new habit of doing this health screen, we're going to see much more compliance, and then we will be able to work individually with parents if some parents are persistent in their non-compliance of this request.
My second question is then we're not taking anyone's temperatures before they come in the buildings, correct?
Correct, yeah. And that is a problem that is challenging, right? Because it, imagine, there's 100 kids walking through the doors and there's a negative response, right? Somebody has a temperature, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a hall monitor that's there and not the nurse, right? It could be quite challenging for somebody to stop a kid and single that child out, in front of their peers. So we're talking about 2 things. It was Nicole, that was your question, right?
Correct.
We're talking about 2 things. We're talking about the possibility of that thermal scanner being set up in the hallway next to the nurse's office, or just the nurse's office. So if it's in the hallway,
Dr. Graham, there's no way to install them on buses before students get to the schools, like in the inside of the buses, or as students are coming onto the buses, or at a few entrances where students typically walk through? Or, I mean, obviously there could be an availability issue, a cost issue, a lot of different things, but I just wonder if there's a way to screen a larger amount of students.
Yep.
And
really the first thing is parents need to screen their child. And actually the guidance from New York State says that, right? It says that the first screener is that parent. So it's really a shifting of responsibility. The parent needs to do that work. The employee needs to do that work. They need to be able to attest, right? The employees need to be able to attest to their healthiness, and parents need to understand how serious this is and attest to their child's healthiness. So that's first and foremost. If it was on a school bus and there was a bus driver who had to listen to tones coming out of a laptop, it's not just a thermal scanner. It needs to be connected to a laptop. It needs to be powered. It's not a tool that could be used on a school bus. So it's a big deal, and our job is to make sure. And today's the beginning, right? By the way, this slideshow, what this information was in the slideshow, and like I said, we have a significant number of people who've already heard this. So this is going to be our job now to communicate that it is the parent's responsibility. And I think that happens, right? When parents are bringing kids to the dentist or the doctor right now, they are responsible for screening too. Okay. So let's see. Can you guys see the slides here? It might be loading.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I've already mentioned this, so I'm going to go through these next slides quickly. When you see this image, this refers to the parent and their child, and when you see this image, this refers to the employee. So clearly, everybody is going to have to participate in screening their own health and the health of their child before they come to school or come to work. There will be a sign at every entrance for every visitor and every employee that says, by either scanning your ID badge or by entering the building, you are attesting to your healthiness. So we've already sent that sign design to Jim Rosler, and he's going to have that installed at every entrance in the district. Also, all of our employees, Robin Kwiatek is looking to see if we can have a second attestation on the computers or the teacher's computer workstation. So when the teacher logs in, like they normally do every day, they will also indicate and attest to their healthiness right before they bypass the sign-in screen. So these slides are just exactly what I've already shared, right? Parents screen for their temperature, employees do the same. Parents screen for the symptoms I showed you in that form, employees do the same. Parents screen and indicate if a child has been associating with somebody who is COVID-19 positive, teachers do the same. And parents indicate if the child is under quarantine, and employees have to do the same. So the next
Brian,
part, yep.
On the bottom of those slides, you say should stay home. Should we change the verbiage to must stay home, or
Yeah, thank you for catching that. I can certainly make that correction.
something maybe a little bit more?
Firm. Absolutely.
Just a thought.
Yeah, good catch. So healthy hygiene practices. We know now, in this new world, that part of our job is to instruct our students and our faculty and staff in proper hand and respiratory hygiene practices. We also need to make sure that we're providing the necessary supplies and information to everybody and all of our stakeholders. We will be teaching mask etiquette, and it's mandatory that children don't get on the bus unless they're wearing a mask. Children don't enter the school unless they're wearing their cloth or mask face covering. And while they're in the hallways, they're masked. When they enter their classroom, they're masked. And when they sit in their seat, they are masked. So it's incumbent that our families understand that that is a must, and we will provide those supplies. but we're also encouraging parents to also provide the mask for children. And I would say to all of us, today is July 27th. We're making this announcement today on July 27th and over the weekend with these slides. And I'm asking all of our parents to help our children become acclimated to face cloth coverings now. We have the rest of July and all of August to help kids become comfortable with this new behavior and new expectation. I see a lot of kids at Tops and Wegmans and at Target and so forth wearing the mask and doing it well. I also see a lot of kids outside hanging out with each other and not wearing masks. So we just need to start shifting our mindset so that mask etiquette becomes part of the norm. In addition to that, teaching proper hand washing and hand sanitizing etiquette is also going to be a big part of teaching students the new procedures of coming to school. And helping children understand, what does social distancing mean? I think it's in the media, it's out there when you go to Supercuts and get your hair cut. Kids have to wear masks, they have to wait outside until they're invited in. That's social distancing, but we need to help kids see that as part of the norm now until a vaccine is identified. We will be limiting severely the number of visitors that enter our schools. So if a parent, if a child has forgotten something, it's going to be more than likely that visitor may or may not be entering the school unless they have an appointment. In addition to that, we are not going to run community education, and we're not going to allow town rec programs or travel programs to use the inside of our schools for any class or any program from August until December. So that's a significant blow to the community, and we understand that, but we are really moving in a different direction. And I'll get into it a little bit later with some of the slides, but we're going to be moving third shift cleaners and custodians into second shift, and second shift cleaners and custodians into first shift to assist us when kids are in session for more cleaning. And I'll talk about that in a moment. We will be providing, as I mentioned already, cloth face coverings to everybody. Some of our employees will be getting N95 masks. Ruby and I met with our SRP leadership today to talk about asking us to consider some other employees, and we absolutely will. We're going to need to work with BOCES or some other entity for the proper fitting of N95 masks for our nurses and other employees who get N95 masks. We are also providing a face shield for every employee, and we're considering a face shield for every student as needed. Our students and staff must utilize the face mask coverings when they are not able to socially distance of at least 6 feet, or when not able to utilize an appropriate physical barrier to prevent the spread of COVID-19. We are also ensuring that students and staff are protected by requiring at least one, if not more, of the following. So social distancing of at least 6 feet, or barriers or face mask coverings. By going to the hybrid model, we're going to be able to do more of this. We're going to be able to ensure more social distancing in the classroom with barriers and or face mask coverings as appropriate. And students will be allowed to remove their cloth face coverings or for meals and for other times when we can ensure social distancing is available in the classroom, and ensure that the child is behind a physical barrier, such as a polycarbonate barrier. Are there any questions from the board about this slide? All right, thank you. We also encourage parents, to identify a face covering that matches your child's personality, that's appropriate, that's not, of course, inappropriate with any kind of profane or, other kinds of messages. But clearly, a little child may like an Iron Man face mask, or a Buffalo Bills face mask, or a New York Yankees face mask, or a Boston Red Sox face mask. Just waiting for Jude to fall off her chair there. So, the more that the child is comfortable with the face mask that they identified with their parent, the better the compliance. And of course, we will be providing every child with their own cloth face covering as well as some disposable ones. We'll have lots and lots of these. I already mentioned that all students will be required to wear a mask and should maintain appropriate social distancing while riding a bus. And we also recognize that there are some students who may be physically or mentally unable to wear a mask because of some type of physical or mental impairment. So in that case, of course, we would be looking at keeping that child, 6 feet away from others and working with the child and the family to teach and help a child habituate to the face cloth covering as appropriate and to their developmental readiness and their sensory readiness. So we have been working on looking at start and end times and making a change for the district. This is very important, even though I'm recommending that we go hybrid in September. If for whatever reason we come back 100%, I'm still recommending that we change the start and end times for our buildings. Teresa and her team conducted a time study over the last week, and just also with respect to our drivers, they of course will be cleaning and disinfecting as appropriate. So at this time, I'd like to show the board the proposed start and end times as they stand today on July 27th. There could be some additional modifications, but we're getting really close. And talking to John Fitzpatrick and Teresa Lizade, I think we nailed it. So imagine that middle school would start first. Okay, we know now that buses begin arriving on campus at around 7:05. All right. That occurs now when we're delivering 1,600 students to our middle school and high school campus. Buses continue to arrive after 7:05, 7:06, 7:07, 7:08, and kids are not dropped off until 7:25 every day. And that's 1,600 kids coming off of 31 school buses. This proposal has the middle school children being picked up only. So, that's an important piece of information because we know that, our middle school is looking at approximately, 650, 660 kids, spread out between 31 buses. So that automatically reduces the density if we're 100% back to school. If we're in hybrid, it's further, each bus has a lower density if we're hybrid. So we could definitely have one child per seat on a school bus coming to school at the 7:05 time. The buses will not sit and wait. When the bus parks and it's 7:05, children can, if it's safe to do so, can just, come off the bus and walk into the middle school. Parents also can be dropping off their kids who are driving, and those kids can be entering the middle school at 7:05. The middle school would have 6 hours and 10 minutes of instruction, with the final bell ringing at 1:25 and students getting on the bus and leaving our campus by 1:35. So that's a 6 hour and 10 minute day of instruction. And, there's more time here, as needed between homeroom and so forth.
Brian?
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Can you just compare how that is as compared to the current situation?
Yep, absolutely. And I might ask John to jump in. But right now, kids come off the bus at 7:25. So instead of that happening, kids are coming off the bus at 7:05, 7:06, 7:07 as appropriate. And our homeroom will now start at 7:15 at the middle school. But John, if you could jump in, I think when kids come off the bus at 7:25 and enter the school, your first class or homeroom period starts around
7:34.
7:34. Okay.
And when do the kids, how many class periods do they have today, and what time do they leave today? In the old world.
In the middle school, as of right now, they leave at 2:15, and we can still do this model. We would, in the middle school, we would class would be class time would be dropped to 38 minutes rather than 41. And because I'm looking at reducing gatherings at lockers, our hallway time could be reduced to 3 minutes rather than 4. We're trying to go paperless as much as possible, and having kids not congregate at lockers as much as we possibly can. And I know that a building our size, kids can get to each and every class in 3 minutes, with the exception of music, which we'll have to make accommodations for.
Yeah. Do you typically have 6 periods a day, John, or more than that?
We have 11 mods per day. Brian is in his diagram is really outlining what a day could look like, and I've broken that down in my own schedule to 11 mods of 38 minutes apiece.
Okay. So it'd be so the day would end how much earlier or later than normal?
The day is going to end roughly about 50 minutes earlier.
But not
Okay,
50.
and the thought process on that is why?
It's just earlier. It doesn't mean that it's 50 minutes of less instruction, right, John?
Right. It's every class is they're still gonna take every single class. They're not gonna miss instruction in anything. Just the amount of time is gonna be reduced by 3 minutes. So rather than 41 minutes per class, it'll be 38 minutes. And this is to get 31 buses to just take the middle school kids alone, which would reduce capacity on the school buses.
Okay.
And Glenn, this chart does not represent mods or periods of instruction. It just it's just counting the hour.
You're correct. I understand that. Thank you.
So it's
I have just one quick question. If we're limiting the time in between classes, I mean, obviously the classrooms have to be cleaned. I'm assuming that is going to be the responsibility then of the student instead of in the hands of the teacher.
yes, and in our parent and within the community leaders, and when I met with the middle school and high school students, I asked them and everybody, all those stakeholders, the same question: would you feel comfortable putting on a pair of gloves and wiping down your area? And every kid, every parent that's been on these committees all said yes. So that's going to be the expectation, that kids wipe down their area, maybe when they arrive to that space, so then they know it's cleaned and cleaned properly.
So it'll be a cleaned on by arrival, not the people leaving, not the kids leaving the classroom when they come in.
Yeah, we're thinking about.
I just for clarification.
Yeah. So what this chart does is it reduces density, and if we're ever back 100%, the density is automatically reduced on the buses as a result of this schedule. You can see that buses leave at 1:35, and that allows them to drop the kids off and come back to get the high school kids. I just gotta get rid of this little pop up there. Pick up the high school kids. Now, high school is almost the way it normally is. It's a 6-hour and 20-minute day. Dismissal is at 2:18. The last bus leaves the campus at 2:26. So, and then buses unload at 7:48, and classes start a little bit later. But we can get the buses out of here around 2:26, which then allows those kids to be dropped off, and then those buses to show up at Huth and Kegabyne for their dismissal. Huth and Kegabyne's arrival is a little bit earlier than it normally is. I think kids get off the bus at 8:50, and now they're going to start unloading at 8:28. And their day is a 6-hour and 10-minute day, just like the middle school. And the first class will start at 8:43, and kids will exit at 2:53. And because Teresa will be using 15 buses at Huth and Kegabyne, where she normally has only used 8 or so buses, This will increase the capacity, the number of buses to take home, the kids that are in that hybrid session, and then eventually the kids that are there full time. And then Sidway, like I said, it's like Youth in Kegamine. Typically their day starts at 8:50, but now kids will be coming off the bus at 9:05. The kids will be leaving after 6 hours and 10 minutes at 3:35, with the last bus exiting the campus at 3:45.
Brian, from a budgetary perspective, it looks like we're adding 2 bus runs, right? One in the morning for additional high school, middle school, and one additional run between Youth and Kegamine. Any understanding of the cost involved in that?
We will definitely be looking at that, but what's important is that with 1,600 kids arriving at our campus, they arrive at 7:05. They arrive at 7:06. So the buses are already out there for that middle school run. So in a typical day, buses are arriving at 7:05, and then again at Youth and Kegamine and Sidway, they were arriving at 8:50. So in this model, the only difference that I see is the buses not getting to Sidway until 9:05. So they're instead of 8:50, you have 15 minutes. In my view of the world, a 15-minute difference at the beginning of the day, and we'll need to calculate the difference at the end of the day.
Brian, I have a quick question about morning rehearsals. I don't know if you've given any thought to whether or not we would have morning instrumental rehearsals or vocal rehearsals, if that's going to be something that will occur next year. That's the first question I have. And then if it is, would things like that be moved to the afternoon then? Because 7:05, I think, is usually when they arrive for the early morning for things.
Yeah. So depending on the level, I know that at the high school level, I've seen kids here at 6:30 or some of those morning practices. So that, yes, we will look at that, and how that impacts kids who maybe, Ashley, was that a middle school thing that you?
I'm thinking of like middle school jazz band. They would come in at 7:05, like syncopations one day would be at 7:05, they would come in. So I'm thinking of things like that, vocal instrumental rehearsals that occur at 7:05. Typically, would that get moved then?
I think so. I think anything, though, the other factor or variable in your question is how many kids are coming in for syncopations, for example, where they are practicing, and are they 12 feet social distancing? So the 6 feet piece goes out the window when we're talking about band and choir. So our teachers will have to work with their principals to determine how many kids they're bringing in. Do they have enough space to be socially distant of 12 feet? And is everybody safe? So there's a lot of variables, I guess, to that part of your question.
I have another question also. I know a lot of people rely on Just for Kids sometimes in the elementary for before school or after school. Do they still have that available to them?
Excellent question. So Wednesday, Cheryl Cardone and I are meeting with, and maybe Ruby, we're meeting with the local daycare providers and JFK. So you're bringing up an excellent point. And I'm hopeful that in our meeting, we can talk about our hybrid plan and what that means for local certified daycare providers and JFK. So for example, to your question, when we show them this schedule, that's the first question. Can you provide, your Just for Kids program sorry, I should know. Do we offer it at the middle school level or just elementary you're thinking about, Nicole?
Just elementary.
It's only at elementary.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have known. So yes, it would be our expectation that Just for Kids would want to have this business and would want to continue providing the before and after school programming. And beyond that, can Just for Kids, Island, our Island Kids Daycare Center, Kiddos Corner, Care-a-Lot, St. Timothy's. Are any of those groups interested in expanding their business model so that parents have an option to use one of those certified daycares during the days when their children may be home with the distance learning aspect and not in school in the hybrid? And I'll get to that slide in a little bit. But we do have a meeting set up Wednesday with those daycare providers. Any other questions about this slide? So moving on, we talked about providing that PPE equipment for everybody. We are also looking at adding plastic dividers and barriers on student desks, student work tables, teacher desks, and cafeteria tables. This image here is an image that we got in a catalog from Professional Plastics. They're a company in Orchard Park. They have been very helpful working with our principals to design these physical barriers that we will be able to add. So the physical barrier is important because if we can socially distance and be behind a barrier, it would be an opportunity, if appropriate, for a mask break during instruction and a mask break in the cafeteria. Any questions about this slide?
Brian, Glenn, this came from my daughter, Sophia, actually. When you add those barriers, will there be enough room on the desks to actually write and to, be able to, participate in the classwork?
Yeah, it's my understanding. We've set up a couple models in Mr. Murray's classroom, and these barriers are Velcroed to the edges, to the edges of the surface area of the desk.
Okay.
So it looks like there's plenty of room.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, and so just to clarify then, so it's social distancing and masks at all times?
Well, with
the
hybrid model, we're going to be able to do a better job social distancing in each classroom. The hybrid model obviously reduces the density approximately by 50% in each classroom, which then allows kids to be spread out, right? Will it be perfect at 6 feet? Maybe, maybe not. So there may need to be, other considerations made. If kids need a mask break, you may do, 3 or 4 kids at a time, depending on how socially distant they are from each other. But there is the cloth face covering, the barrier, and the opportunity in a hybrid to be socially distant. So the literature says or, but by hybrid, we will be able to do, social distancing and mask and plastic barrier, and then maybe give kids a break when we can. I don't know if that makes sense,
Okay.
Jay.
Yeah, it does. I thought it was social distancing and masks, but
Yeah, it's suggested. It's been kicked around quite a bit, but by going hybrid, we're in much better shape with that. Okay.
thank you.
So this might be, this is just a picture out of a catalog from Professional Plastics, but we might also have plastic around teacher desks. It may not look exactly like this image, but there are options, for teachers if that option is preferred. The management of ill persons is particularly important in our health and safety plan. Got to give a lot of credit to Sherry Steffens and the Health and Safety Committee and Dr. Ellenfield for putting together a good plan. Again, our job is to educate all families. I talked about that already. And, and then any, person in the school, whether it's an adult or a student who are presenting with symptoms must report to the nurse before going home. They must identify themselves. And it's easy for teachers to identify a child who may have the symptoms, but sometimes employees are a little bit more stubborn. So they have to identify themselves and go to the nurse when exhibiting symptoms. And part of our whole and communication plan is to make certain that as many documents that we use are translated into the native languages of our families who have students who come to us as English as a second language. So Cheryl and Felicia and Max and the bilingual education or the bilingual task force are working and will work continuously to make that those documents and letters are translated into the native language. We already talked about the importance of knowing the parent knowing the temperature of their child and the employee, and of course that a sick individual who is exhibiting symptoms and obviously has a temperature and or other symptoms would be isolated in a designated area. There may be a designated area within the health suite, or the nurse and the principal may identify a different designated area in the building. Of course, parents will be notified immediately to pick up the ill child, and if possible and practicable, that child will be escorted to the parent's vehicle as opposed to having the family come into the building. If the student is out for more than 4 days, a doctor's note will be required for the student to re-enter. And if faculty and staff are sent home immediately and required to provide a doctor's note, the same would be true. They would be required to provide a doctor's note if they're home for more than 4 days. So this is important. Any school in any community might need to implement a short-term closure and follow certain procedures, regardless of community spread at that time in their community, if an infected person has been identified as having had or being tested positive for COVID-19 that was in the building. If this happens, we will follow the CDC recommendations and work very closely with our local health officials. Obviously, Dr. Ellenfield will be involved. The Erie County Department of Health will be involved, particularly if it's known to us that an employee or a child has been identified as infected with COVID-19. Of course, once learning of that, we will enact all of our communication protocols, and we already have these communication protocols for other viruses, that occur in different school buildings. So we're already very comfortable and we know how to communicate with the Erie County Department of Health. The Erie County Department of Health will obviously work very closely with us. If the infected person is an adult or if the infected person is a child, it's incumbent upon our administrator and our nurse to work with the Erie County Department of Health so that they know who that infected person had contact with. And there's going to be certain criteria that the Erie County Department of Health will ask the principal and the nurse to ensure that they are identifying everybody that needs to be contact traced. Additionally, a communication will go out to the families and the employees of that building. And it may be determined that one building, not the district, but that one building may close for a short period of time. In some cases, they use the word dismissal, but it's really there could be a school closure between 2 to 5 days, depending on the severity of the contact tracing that's involved. Are there any questions about that right now before I move on? Thank you. So I'm going to need everybody's help. If the community is watching this, the community that watched, the 3,000 views of this slideshow already, I've said the same thing. We need everybody's help because the communication letter that we send to the employees and to the families of that building that had an infected person will not identify the child or the employee under no circumstances. So I would appreciate everybody having my back in the community, understanding that we are not saying it's Sally Jones. We're not saying it's Mr. Smith, right? One of our teachers. We are saying there's been an infected person, in that school. And we're doing that to protect the privacy of that person, to follow the American with Disabilities Act and to follow the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. So if there is a determination to close that school for a short period of time, 2 to 5 days or more, obviously the literature says to wait 24 hours before you clean and disinfect. So that allows the virus basically to die. And then you go, well, I don't know if it's die, but you wait 24 hours, you go in, you clean, you go in and disinfect, and you blitz the building to make sure that those droplets are gone. So our staff will obviously participate in that over the time period that the building is closed. And then in consultation with the Erie County Department of Health or the New York State Department of Health, the building will reopen. All right, I'm moving on to cleaning and disinfecting unless there's any questions. All right. So Jim Rosler works with a professional company called Hilliard. I've mentioned them a few times with the board in the past. They are outstanding. Hilliard and Jim Rosler are going to work together to make certain that every cleaner and custodian in our district has a special COVID job duty sheet that is developed in consultation with this professional company. So everybody will know and be taught and provided professional development in their new duties as it relates to COVID. Each classroom, in addition, will have a checklist positioned probably on the inside of the classroom door that our cleaner the night before needs to sign, indicating that they have followed their COVID duty sheets in that classroom the night before. Each classroom will have its own disinfecting station, gloves, a product called Suprox, which is a food grade cleaning and disinfecting disinfectant, and microfiber cloths will be used in that classroom. And then, of course, we need, to launder with microfiber cloths as well.
Brian, will the laundering of the cloths be done on site or off site professionally?
Right now, I believe we're doing it on site, so it's a question I can ask Jim Rosler.
If you could, some clarification would be good.
Good. Cheryl Cardone, could you make sure that you take a note on that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
So I mentioned earlier, I'm just reinforcing this. We're not being mean, we're not, we want community ed to use our buildings. We want the town rec. We want our travel, baseball programs and soccer programs to use our buildings. And if things were normal, we would, but we can't. We will not be allowing that to happen inside our buildings, as I mentioned earlier, but that allows us to move personnel to second shift and move second shift personnel to first shift. So when students are in the building, whether it's hybrid or 100%, we will have extra hands on deck to make certain that the high touch areas are cleaned and disinfected throughout the day, that bathrooms are cleaned and disinfected throughout the day, that we have a team, to be able to manage the cafeteria and so forth. So we think this is a good plan to utilize our staff to the best of its capabilities without adding the burden of having a third shift and people exiting our buildings at 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night. In addition, we are looking at removing all non-permanent classroom rugs from our classrooms. All non-district furniture should be removed from our classrooms. Hand sanitizing stations will be located more so than ever before throughout our schools. I know that Jim is going to be looking at the automated ones and not trying to avoid the pump action ones where you touch, a lever. So he's working on that. We are looking at, the board was so generous just before we closed to allow us to purchase a Protexus cordless electrostatic sprayer for each of our buildings. And now we have one that is a backpack sprayer that has the disinfectant that somebody wears in a backpack and can spray and disinfect large areas. We will also be listening to our supervisors and SRP team in the event that we think we need to add more Protexus cordless electrostatic sprayers as needed. With respect to filtration and movement of air, Jim Rosler has guaranteed that he will be doubling our outside air intake on all equipment throughout our entire district, and that the filtration rates in our univents will be set at the highest MERV rate setting possible. We are also looking at the possibility of purchasing some outdoor tents for all of our buildings. We think that if we can move physical education, choir, or band outside under a tent, if practicable and if needed, to enhance social distancing and either phys ed or performance in phys ed or performance in music, this might be a really nice addition. There's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through to make this happen, and Jim Rosler is working with Young and Wright to make certain that the purchases of these tents meet the code that is established by the New York State Education Department with respect to it being a fire retardant and any other code that we need to meet. So we're looking at that as well. Okay. So I'm going to talk now about the hybrid model that we're recommending to start the school year with. This model we're seeing occurring in almost every district around Western New York. It's an A-B cohort model. Students with the last name beginning with A through L would attend school 2 days, and those 2 days would be Monday and Thursday, while students with the last name beginning with M to Z would be home on Monday and Thursday. The M to Z students would come to school on Tuesday and Friday, while students with the other last names would be home. And then Wednesday, all kids would be home and participating in student-led, student-directed instruction. And in fact, every student, every day, will be participating in teacher-led directed instruction. But when students are home, it would not be synchronous. So that's an important aspect of that. Teachers will be required to use Google Classroom. And of course, it's an incumbent on us to make sure that every student and teacher knows how to use Google Classroom properly to engage with their students. So let me show you a model of what this looks like.
Brian, I have some questions on the learning, where you say it wouldn't be synchronized. So, my son would be in school on Tuesday and Friday, Wednesday for cleaning. What would a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday look like for him? I mean, as a parent, my expectation would be for him to be taught the same amount of hours that he is taught in school, with really the direction being from the district, not from myself as a parent.
Yes. So first off, I want to say that we're working with the GITA. They believe that to be true to the extent possible. Will it be 6 hours on a Chromebook? I don't think so. When your child is home. So let's use my child and your child as an example, right? So as you said, looking at this model, on Monday, September 14th, Sean Graham will be coming to school while your son will be home on Monday. Teachers will have created teacher-directed instruction for your son to participate in on Monday. That would and hopefully will include a instructional video from the teacher, and it's using a flipped classroom approach so that PJ gets the same information as Sean on Monday, and then when Sean is home and PJ's in school, the same is true. So will it be 6 hours? I don't think so, and there's a lot of reasons for that, Sue. Developmentally, it may not be good, for fourth graders to be on their Chromebook for 6 hours. And it may be very taxing, for a middle school or high school student to be on their Chromebook for 6 hours. So it's going to be asynchronous. For example, some of our families may need their high school age child who's home on Monday to help with childcare and care of the siblings, perhaps if the other children are in daycare. So it provides some flexibility for the student and the family to access that or for the child to access the information as best and to the extent practicable for that family. But the concept is flipped classroom, and I have to say that the GITA is excellent in their thinking that this isn't a day off for the children at home. That in this hybrid model, we have to teach the standards, we have to stick to the curriculum, because the state has not canceled state assessments, the state has not canceled Regents exams, so our algebra teachers still need to teach algebra every day, and those children at home need to be exposed to that teacher directed instruction every day. So in this model, you can see that, Sean comes to school on Monday, PJ is home, PJ's in school on Tuesday, Sean is home, and then on Wednesday, starting the 16th and onward, everybody's home. And everybody's getting teacher directed instruction. It's not a day off. The teachers come to school every day to provide that instruction. And that one day where everybody's home, it falls in the middle of the week where we can do another deep clean of the buildings to ensure that it's as clean and disinfectant as possible with this model. And then again, Sean comes back on the 17th while PJ's home, and then PJ's back on the 18th. So
Brian, let me just finish. I just want to finish my question. So the home directed instruction would be similar to when my son was at home. And let me just, one more thing I would say to that is, I think it's very important that we set the guideline. If Teacher Mr. Smith is doing a video, then all of the teachers are doing it. Right. It needs to be uniform. It cannot be different. Expectations have to be the same, so everybody knows what they're doing, and it's not loosey-goosey. I understand last year was kind of a crazy thing we went through. We closed thinking it was going to be 3 weeks, but not everybody got the same type of instruction, education, support, and I think it's extremely, extremely important that every teacher is given the exact same instructions. So when my son is doing all of his teachers and he's getting schoolwork. Our children
that's well said.
Deserve an education, and that's our expectation.
Brian,
so I just want to make sure that everybody has guidelines, and that it's not an hour and a half when he's home.
Brian, if I can just add to that, I mean, as a parent, I'm just curious as to what dialogue or items might be subject to the discussion with the GITA that may affect me as a parent that, might be important to me to know so I can ensure that, we're doing the best to provide, instruction that is essentially 180 days, during the course of, the school year.
Right. Well, that's it. That's it exactly. We're still held to the standard of 180 days of instruction. We're still held to the standard of teaching the standards and preparing students for those state assessments, and whether they're high school Regents exams or elementary state assessments. So it's absolutely critical that we are not cutting back on that. And the only way to do that is the flipped classroom model. And I got to say, I'm not trying to butter up the GITA. They're with the district on this. Mike Laurie and I met with the leadership on Friday, and they said that to us. So I think that's an excellent start. The synchronous, at one point, the conversation was, well, what if we turned on a camera in the classroom and tried synchronous? That's filled with challenges. Whether it's a parent seeing a different student do something that's not quite right in the classroom, and now that student's personal identifiable information is out there for the whole world to see. That's kind of filled with challenges. Let's be honest with that. So this is really a good model. Let me say this. I don't want to be hybrid, and I don't want to be all distance learning. You're right. Sure. So the best model is kids coming to school. But when we're looking at where our community is right now with a 10% drop from the end of June to the end of July, please take my kids back. And I don't, just take them back. Everybody comes and you see 10% of the parents say, oh, wait a minute. I'm not quite there yet. This meets people halfway. Some people are going to hate the hybrid. Some people are going to love it. But I think it's the safest approach to opening schools. It's filled with challenges. And I believe working with the GITA leadership, they will communicate along with me what those expectations that Sue just shared.
Brian, I have a couple of questions, if I
Yep,
could.
let me just one thing. I think Glenn was going to finish the statement, and then we'll go to Ashley.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you seem to be indicative of the fact that you were recommending or thinking that we were going to go to the hybrid model. Although my general thought, in reading the governor's messages, which I do from time to time, seems to suggest that he's going to make the decision about what model we end up going to.
Yeah, and you know what? He could. So if he makes that statement, right? I think we're ready by adding the barriers, by requiring masks, and doing our best to social distance. The barriers allow the social distancing when we can't do 6 feet. So I think we're ready. We could be ready if he said that. Glenn, I don't think he's going to say that.
No, I understand that. I think that we're in a position where we're trying to plan for the unknown, right? I'm very impressed, as I've said before, with the the plans of keeping the schools safe. Okay, that I'm not worried about at this point in time. I think that efforts have been made in that regard. I'm more concerned about ensuring that the kids get the proper education in accordance with state standards. You just said, for example, that the standards aren't going to change, but on one hand, on the other hand, we're saying that we canceled Regents exams this year, right? Last year. They may not happen in 2021. Okay, and I'm saying to myself and my daughter, I says, you didn't take the algebra Regents last year. There was a diminishing of standards. I don't want to see that continue.
Right.
Okay.
And I agree with you. And I think my best guess on July 27th is we'll still give those exams. Now, what that looks like in a hybrid world, I don't know. But my expectation is it's not going to be canceled. But that's July 27th, right?
A couple questions, Brian. In terms of moving from a hybrid model to a full attendance model, is there a point in time that's been designated to evaluate whether or not we can move from a hybrid model to a full attendance model? Is there a certain checkpoint that we have or that's been imposed yet by state ed or that the governor's given guidance on?
Right. I will say honestly to our board and the community that when I first heard the governor's formula, I had a lot of questions. Schools are open with a 5% or less, infection rate, and schools are closed with, a 9% infection rate. So I had a lot of questions about what that meant. And just basically, I think my understanding is that I think the governor is going to say schools are open, period. He's not going to say it. Schools are open with 100%. I don't believe so. I do hope we get some clarity on exactly what the formula means, because if we're right now on July 27th as a region at 1%, I heard we were a little bit lower than 1%. To your question, Ashley, what does it mean when our regional community is at 0.3%, or less than 1%, 0.2, 0.1, where are we when, and I know I'm not saying it absolutely correctly, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. If we're at 1%, when it's less than 1%, what do we do as a group? Is it going to be up to the superintendent? Is it going to be up to the governor, or the Department of Health, right? So there are a lot of unanswered questions to your initial question, Ashley. So that's why we're taking a cautious approach to this, because everybody says there's going to be a second wave, and when that hits could be, in the fall. And so that's probably when these numbers were really, we're really going to be paying attention to, are we at 4% as a region? Are we at 5%? Are we at 6% as a region? So
if it's left locally to decide, will we then be able to reevaluate it at a certain point after so many weeks? And okay.
yeah, I think we would work as a team, with all of our stakeholders to fully comprehend and understand the positive and negative consequences to, opening at 100%.
And then I want to go back to another slide. You had mentioned we have electrostatic sprayers for every building, and that Wednesday will be a deep clean day. Do we have those sprayers for our buses, and can those sprayers be used on the buses for that day that we're deep cleaning? That was another question I had. And then just another question I had about the time schedule in terms of extracurricular activities. Will there be extracurricular activities? Do you anticipate there being extracurricular activities? And if so, given the new schedule and the different start and end times, would there be late buses? I know that's a question that I've been asked by parents, so I don't know if you have given any thought to that.
Sort of. The New York State Athletics, I think what we're probably going to do for our board and for our community is we're going to pay very close attention to what the New York State High School Athletics Association indicates with respect to high school, JV, and modified sports. To me, that's probably going to be they're probably going to be the gatekeeper to extracurricular activities. So here's what I mean by that. The New York State High School Athletic Association has already postponed fall sports to September 21st. So it would be my recommendation that we're not participating in extracurricular activities in person, between the opening of school and September 21st. Now, if I'm running student council, I can do that work virtually with kids, right? So I don't need to be in person for some extracurricular. It's not going to be a hard yes or a hard no, but my benchmark right now is paying attention to when high school sports opens. Because if high school sports opens on September 21st, that means that they think kids can run cross country and maybe some other socially distant sports. And then we can apply those variables to in-person extracurricular activities. But if sports close, if they shut down for the fall, then we have to look at those extracurricular activities, which ones can be moved to virtual experiences because they're after school anyways, and go on from there. Does that help, Ashley?
Yes. And then the electrostatic sprayers on the bus.
The beautiful thing about electrostatic sprayers is that transportation was the first entity in our district a few years ago to get that sprayer. So they already have it in transportation. And if Teresa were to come back and talk to Ruby and say, you know what, I could use a second one, I really could, and here's how I'm going to use it, I'm sure the district would move forward with that. The availability of them is a different animal. It took us a long time to get the ones we ordered last spring.
Can I ask a question about the schedule?
Sure.
What is
this Robin?
No, it's Nicole.
Oh, okay, Nicole.
What are you going to do as it pertains to like gym and band and orchestra lessons?
Correct.
So like gym is usually like an every other day, but the kids are only going 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And orchestra, you usually, for lessons or band, they pull them out of classes, but they're only in their classes now 2 days a week.
Yeah, excellent questions. So this is something that, by the way, this is the first time anybody's seeing this hybrid schedule, right? So now that our music department sees it, they need to work with their principals to understand how they can operate with this reduced capacity of children, right? So, and then how they can operate with the reduced capacity in band and choir, maintaining 12 feet of social distance. So Nicole, more information to follow on how band and choirs will work within this model. And I can tell you, I've been trying really hard to make sure that our music department has seen, they haven't seen this, but has seen a lot of other bits of information. So I know people like Sarah Russo and others are are going to come up with a plan that best meets the needs of kids. It's just not going to be the same. It's going to be different, and they're going to be working with smaller groups. And they may, I've asked them not to also consider what are we doing with band and choir concerts that were scheduled in the fall. So I'm waiting to hear back from that team to give us some recommendations on what they propose. A lot of districts I was just going to add, a lot of districts, I shouldn't say a lot, some local districts did some pretty creative things in the fine arts virtually, but that requires professional development and maybe some additional software. I've seen high school choirs locally in Western New York perform a beautiful, performance, kind of capturing everybody's individual singing and kind of putting it together as a ensemble. But that's not easy work. It's technical, it requires special software, and it requires training. So we as a district may need to think differently in the fine arts with some of those things. So sorry, Nicole, that was a long response.
Brian, Glenn, any consideration with the hybrid model of how parents, and I'm not in that situation, but other parents who might have childcare issues and how they're going to be able to coordinate the kids not being, supposedly they got to work, okay? And how do they coordinate that with a hybrid model that has kids home some days, on other days not home?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, but here's some thoughts. Number one, by keeping it AL and MZ cohort, the older siblings will be coming home first like they do now and be available for their siblings as they come home from school if parents use their older siblings with some childcare issues. And then the same is true as the older siblings and the younger siblings are home at the same time. So there may be an opportunity for a parent that has an older child in high school, if the child is socially responsible, to do some childcare for that parent if needed. And that's where that asynchronous opportunity to get to Google Classroom may be very important. The other thing I mentioned earlier is I have a meeting Wednesday with local daycare providers. And I'm going to be very curious when I share this model with their local daycare providers, if they have an opportunity to expand their business model as it currently exists today. Will Island Kids be able to take school-age children every other day, right, based on this model? And how many can they take? And can they do it on a reduced rate for families? Particularly if we provide the breakfast and lunch for the child as if we would when they were in school, right? So that's a conversation I'm going to have on Wednesday to talk about how creative local daycares can be in offering services to families who may struggle with this hybrid model. Also, Just for Kids, the board, I'd like to hear the board's opinion about maybe the district offering Just for Kids Eco Island during the school day as a place for some kids, not a big group, but for some kids to receive, daycare during the day if a parent had to go to work and could work with Just for Kids at Eco Island. Glenn, any feedback or anybody else on that idea?
How many kids do you think we could do there? Right? It sounds like a great idea, but it's relatively broken up rooms and small. So I mean, if we're talking 10 kids, 12 kids, because you're still going to have all of the same social distancing and everything there as well.
Yeah, so it'll be a fascinating conversation with them because they have to be able to afford it, right, to staff it. And you're right, we've all been in that Eco Island room. It fits a classroom, but we can't do that in the social distancing.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Brian. I think that, unfortunately, if we're trying to, in an after school type program or not in school type program, ensure that kids are additionally social distanced, it makes it difficult, right? Because, that's not part of what we typically do. But
Yes.
Happy to make Echo Island or any other, school facility available for that.
Yeah.
I think it's something worth investigating as well.
And Sue's spot on. It might only be 12 kids that have access, but 12 more daycare opportunities that may not have existed. And it's Monday through Friday for 12 kids too. They may alternate on the day. So, and I'm just throwing a number out, 12. I don't know what the number is.
Brian, what I wanted to go back to the question about the busing. If September 21st comes and sports are starting and after school activities are starting around music or syncopations, different musical groups, will we, with the schedule changing around the start and end times of school, have buses available for late buses, do you think?
To be honest, I have not thought about that.
Okay.
So we'll investigate that. I'll talk to Teresa about it. It worries me a bit. So I'd have to investigate how do we do our best, for the child, obviously to wear a mask and to be one to a seat, on a late bus. So I would hate for, 40 kids trying to get on the same bus because it's a late bus and that we can only accommodate 20, right?
It's just something for us to plan for and think about as we move into the fall.
This is excellent conversation.
Brian, I have just two more questions. I apologize. Has there been any talks or consideration given to band lessons or orchestra lessons? I know there was a couple districts last year in Pittsburgh, New York, specifically, that gave kids lessons at home. May not have been every week, maybe every other week, but it was done through Zoom or Google Meet or whatever the forum was, but they were able to get actual lessons, instrument lessons at home. So that was just wondering if there was any consideration given to that. And also with this hybrid model, have we looked at and determined how our students that require or need special services, how that will be scheduled?
Okay. So Cheryl, please take a note. It's an excellent question. It's possible, depending on the teacher's schedule, that there could be some synchronous lessons, right, at home. Whether or not mom and dad want to hear, the screeching of an instrument is another story.
Of course we do. We listen to them practice.
So I appreciate that. And Cheryl, if you could capture that for me, that'll be an important conversation for us and our principals to have with our instrumental specialists. And we also know that orchestra is probably the easiest one for children to be close together wearing masks and playing an instrument because, obviously they're not using wind instruments and so forth.
Along those same lines of wind instruments, I know that there was a question that came up about students sharing instruments that can't go home, like the bass clarinet, I know is something that's larger that students used on site. So I'm just wondering if we've given any thought to contacting parents to either rent those instruments to keep them at home, or in the past they've been kept at school if they're larger instruments, and students have sometimes shared instruments and things like that. So we should start thinking about what we need to do to make sure students aren't sharing instruments and how we're going to handle the larger instruments, I guess, that would normally stay at school.
So Ruby doesn't know I'm throwing it to her, but Ruby, I think you had a conversation with Sarah Russo about this very topic.
Yes. So Sarah is on my finance committee. She has brought up the instrument component. We have talked about her doing an inventory to kind of see how many students are sharing instruments. She is looking at cost points for purchasing of some instruments because we think this is going to be a little bit more long-term. And I guess the real question is, when you get into the rental component, are we dealing with the same type of issues that people are still sharing instruments if you're renting it from someplace? So she's looking at some cost points. If you remember I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was my first year with Grand Island. We had put into place about instrument replacement. So she does have equipment money to be a little bit flexible, but she's collecting some additional information. But it is on the radar. I actually have my next budget and finance committee meeting tomorrow morning. So I will talk offline with her just to try to get some updates to see where she stands with that.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And Brian, the second part of my questions are students that require special services. Has that been worked into our hybrid model as well?
Excellent. So I'll talk and then I'll toss it over to Cheryl.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So in this model, children with the most severe physical, developmental, intellectual needs will be we will be offering a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in-person opportunity for those kids to come to school. At first we were going to add Wednesday to that, but then we found a lot of problems with adding Wednesday, particularly some kids from that population of our students actually, they go to phys ed and they go to art and things of that nature. And when we're shut down, those opportunities won't exist. So right now we're looking at this model. And then Cheryl, could you talk about telehealth?
I can. So as Brian said, we are looking at the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday model. And I will, first of all, I'll talk about the fact that we have 2 classes at Sidway that this would pertain to, 2 at Hughes, 1 at Kegabyne, 1 at the middle school, and 1 at the high school. In the meantime, what we've done is we've experimented not only since April, but also over the summer with providing teleservice for the students, and that would include OT, PT, speech, behavior therapy, and also music therapy at this point in time. So for those students that still need that service, we will be making sure that some of it is in person, and on Wednesdays when they aren't in school, that they would also be receiving those therapies as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question about the special education services and the daycare?
Yes.
Because I know that once the child turns 3, you go from county into district for special education services, and the teachers they go into the daycares. So I'm wondering, when you ask, or if it is a possibility, when you talk to them, for some of the children that are going to have to go into daycare on the days that they're not in school, is there a way that they can get their services at the daycare? Like, for instance, my daughter had them at daycare before she started at kindergarten.
Yeah, it's a beautiful suggestion, Cheryl. I know you're capturing that in our meeting with daycare. Let's make sure that we bring that up. That's excellent.
Right. And Joy, let me say that the kids don't transition over from CPSC to CSE until, until they're actually going into kindergarten.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, if we do have some of our kindergartners or our first or second graders, at daycare, that would be an excellent suggestion for them to maybe go there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's really great. All right.
I also have one more question. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Sure, no problem.
And I'm trying to, because I struggle, with this gym class and children with respiratory who, may have issues wearing masks. Has there been any thought or any discussion on how, because obviously social distancing in gym class may be a little bit hard too, but especially with the kiddos that have respiratory issues it's going to be a challenge to keep the mask on the little ones?
Yep.
Is there been any thought to that?
Yeah, so Chris DeMarco, as you know, is our Director of Physical Education and Health. So besides him leading the social and emotional committee with Jessica Hutchings, he's also working with the phys ed teachers right now. And we're talking a lot about reimagining, physical education in a COVID-19 world. So to your point, Joy, the hybrid model is a lot easier to social distance in phys ed. If a phys ed teacher normally has, 28 kids or, 26 kids, they're going to have half of those kids. So, and we really are exploring what can we be doing outside. I came from a different district a few years ago, 4 years ago, and there was a principal that mandated recess outside every day for the entire school, and there were 800 kids in her school. And I often cite that as remarkable because the teachers and the children put on their boots and galoshes and coats and hats, and they went outside in the winter, in the rain, every day they went outside. So if, elementary age students from that district can do it, we're really asking our phys ed department, what can we do so that kids are 12 feet apart from each other when they're playing outside, and that it's safe, and that they have that break from the cloth face covering. So Chris DeMarco is the one that's leading that conversation with phys ed, and so we'll get more information on that.
Brian and Cheryl, I just want to piggyback on a question that Joy had regarding services in the daycare and things like that. Wednesday, given this hybrid model and what's been presented, would be a great travel day to be able to reach some of those students at the daycares and at the other locations when school is not in session on Wednesdays. That would be a great, just a suggestion in terms of traveling from.
Yep. And we are requiring our staff to be present on Wednesday.
Yes.
So that makes it a lot easier to fulfill those obligations.
Yep. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
So it's 9:40, and we just finished the first half of these presentations. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually at the last slide. The second to last slide. So Plan C, right? Total maximum social distancing, students learning from home. We're really just, by using this hybrid model, by doing the flipped classroom, by maintaining to the extent possible the content, the curriculum, and the standards, that would just occur, right, in that distance learning, which is different than it was in the spring. So it would be our expectation that, if everybody was home, we're still sticking to the standards, we're still sticking to the curriculum, and we're working to the extent possible with our kids. So this is actually the last slide. Jokingly, it's 9:40, and you can see what a great and enriching conversation we just had. And that's why I keep coming back to whatever I post on Friday to meet the deadline. It's important for the whole community to know that it could change on August 15th, it could change on August 29th, it could change on November 1st. So it's a living, breathing document that will be posted on the website and sent to the state education department. And it's because of conversations like this that we need to be adaptable and flexible in everything we think of in reimagining the reopening of schools in a COVID-19 pandemic. Every school district across New York State is working tirelessly on this project, and it's a challenge. You could see today that parents, administrators, supervisors, confidential clerks, SRP, GITA, community leaders, students have all shared their ideas, and now you have shared even more ideas to help us refine this plan. So I thank everybody who's been involved. I thank the board, and if there's any other questions, please let me know. And believe it or not, that's the end of the superintendent report.
Thank you. So now we're moving on to the Board of Education report. We have a high school ETSA liaison report that Jay submitted. Jay, did you have anything that you wanted to add or say regarding the report?
I do. Sorry.
It's okay.
It won't unmute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes. Yep. We can.
Oh,
Oh, you can hear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, of course, That's the moment my screen freezes. No, just end of the year, regular end of the year business to wrap it up. Just want to say welcome to our new officers. We thank you in advance for your service. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. And we have next up our Board of Education meeting calendar for the 2021 school year. We have a couple drafts that we've had shared. One had some workshop meetings that would be one meeting, and then another meeting, the typical format that we have today, that we have had here today. One of the things regarding the having workshops is we could be able to review things like a distance learning plan and have it presented to us what the requirements would be in a distance learning model, and then be able to give input and feedback on things like distance learning plans, mentoring plans, strategic plans, things that summer curriculum work that was done this summer. So things that we fund in terms of summer curriculum work that we funded and approved, and follow up on those items, and then be able to really take a good look at, what was accomplished and how it's being implemented, and then give any feedback, or, have a list of things that we need to consider regarding resources in the budget based on what has already occurred and what needs to occur in the future. So I don't know if any board members would like to share their thoughts regarding that. It could also be a meeting that has an emergency vote on something that possibly couldn't wait till the next meeting 2 weeks later, but it would give us 2 meetings a month, but one of the meetings would be more of a deep dive into topics that we could work from a list from that the board develops, that we'd like to look at and really be able to look at in terms of, what's been done, what we funded, and what we may need to give input on for the future. I don't know if anyone
I think we could marry the two, especially with everything that's going on in education and all the different stuff. I think it's important that twice a month we're looking at it all, giving the opportunity to make changes. These meetings are our meetings. We can have any type of conversation we want, any presentations we want. But for me, I think we could marry them both, where we could put strategic planning on it and have great conversation, but also leave it open so we can discuss other things, take votes on any other changes we need to make. I mean, we're in a pretty unknown territory here. So I like the idea of in-depth conversation, but I think we can marry the two and still have meetings. That's all.
Okay, anyone else have thoughts on the calendar? And I also wanted to go over the August date and make sure we have a quorum for August 24th, and don't need to move that to the 17th. Go ahead, Jay, did you have?
No, I'm open to trying the work session model. I agree with Sue too that, we're in unprecedented times. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of issues that arise that will probably need a vote. So as long as it's still, able to have an agenda if we need to vote on something, I would be open to trying it.
That was my thought too, is that we might have something that needs a vote, but have more time to really, look at things like the distance learning plan. I think is critical to really have a solid plan. Last year we were caught off guard. This year, we know we may need that, and we have to have parameters in place for something like that.
Can we just make sure, if that's how we're going to run it, that we can add into a workshop votes on personnel and any other matters? We just got to make sure that we're determining what our meeting is set at and what activities we are allowed to actually do.
Brian, if we had a workshop model and we needed to have a personnel vote, would we be able to add that into the agenda, or how would that?
So as long as Jude and I know, that well enough in advance, we can add if we had a workshop scheduled, we can add that as a special Board of Education meeting. Jude, is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So as long as we know in advance, right, we can, because we have to publicize the information. So we could marry the two, as Sue said, take a workshop that's planned and build in a special board meeting for that night and continue with the workshop model.
But it would have to be a workshop and then a Board of Education meeting. We couldn't take votes within our workshop, correct?
Correct. That's not my understanding.
So that's what I'm meaning. So I guess when I said marry the two, is we put strategic planning on our agenda for September 28th. We do exactly what you want inside our meeting. Like we did with his hybrid model and all of, the scheduling. We had discussions, we asked questions. We could do that with all those things that you mentioned and put it right into our agenda and still be able to take vote and do everything else we need to do to run the district. Instead of having two separate meetings, do it all in one.
You can still use it as a workshop. She's just saying if you label it as strategic, you don't have to just use it as a workshop.
Correct.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we don't have meetings that, two perfunctory meetings versus one in-depth meeting and one that we take the vote on.
Well, I think we're all on the same page that we have a lot of workshop stuff to do. So if we just keep it as that and
call it a workshop / special board meeting is what.
Right, but if we label it as strategic, then we don't have to just be workshop.
Yeah.
Actually, you and I and Brian could schedule all of those that you wanted inside of a actual board meeting. It's been, we've always had presentations where we've asked questions, delved into stuff. It's public information anyways. So I just think that we're going to need to have board meetings, especially with everything that's going on. So it would be less probably confusing to say it's a workshop and then call an emergency board meeting. Might be a little confusing to the public.
Could we have one meeting a month be a regular board meeting and one meeting a month be a workshop / special board meeting? Call it a workshop / special board meeting, and then if you needed us to vote on certain things, that could be
whatever the board desires. We could absolutely have. I mean, if the board liked this idea, having a workshop and a special board meeting, the board meeting itself could be watered down a little bit, right? Maybe not cover as many areas, but cover the important areas that you and Sue and I would determine in the agenda setting, or just call them, workshop and board meeting, and just.
I kind of was hoping we could water it down to the important things when we have a workshop, so that it doesn't, because it could go quite long depending on the amount of input and suggestions that the board has, like tonight. We could then, Sue and you and I could select the items that have to be in the special board meeting, but it could be a shorter special board meeting on the workshop days. And the workshop items can be determined, we could get a list of running items and then pick from those items what we need to address when. So distance learning obviously would be something that would be sooner rather than later, because it's something that we'll be doing if we have, given that we've preferred the hybrid model, or that we're going toward moving toward the hybrid model of reopening. We would need to look at the parameters around that, or have presentations on more specifics regarding the questions that were brought up around distance learning and things like that.
So my suggestion would be to have a regular board meeting scheduled at 7:30 with a workshop to follow after the meeting. That way we can get all the business done first and then have the workshop after. That was just my suggestion. Because our workshop might last a half an hour, it might last 2 hours, and we would have to have a set time for the actual board meeting. So maybe we set the board meeting for 7:30, workshop immediately following, and then we don't have an end time in our discussion.
Yeah. So I like that idea. Could we have a special board meeting and then a workshop to follow? Like on the schedule, special board meeting / workshop?
We sure
And
can.
then start at 7:30 like we normally do, and then we won't have to have a specific end time.
We can. And it may be, determined by you and Sue that it's a consent agenda type of board meeting, or maybe we need deeper conversations on the items that are on that.
Right.
And then in regards to the August date, did anyone have any comments around August 24th versus August 17th, or do we have a quorum? I just want to take a roll call and make sure we will have a quorum on that day.
I'm here August 24th.
I will not be here on this 24th.
Robin?
I'll be here.
I'll be here the 24th, not the 17th.
Okay.
I will be here the 24th, not the 17th.
In the same way, I will not be here the 17th either, but I'll be here the 24th.
Okay.
24th.
So we will go with the 24th. It looks like the majority of the people will be available. August 24th will be that on the schedule. And then are there any other comments regarding the schedule? Okay, we will do a regular board meeting and a special board meeting / workshop then model. And that's great. I think we'll get a lot of things done and get to look at a lot of different things that are happening in the district and really have a good deep dive and understanding of everything that's going on. And I think that'll be great, especially this year, given the uncertainty with this year. I think it's a great year to move toward that kind of a model. So thank you. All right, public comment session, general items not included in this agenda. I don't think we have anything for that. No, okay. Committee of the whole items and information for the roundtable, beginning with Glenn.
Some people are having
Or
trouble
Yeah, he might have had to get off. He's not on right now.
unmuting
Yeah, I
themselves.
don't know if Glenn's on. I can start. I just want to say thank you, Dr. Graham, district administrators, teachers, parents, everybody for your comprehensive reopening plan. Everything looks great, and looking forward to see what is to come.
Nicole.
I have nothing.
Joy?
I agree with Jay that the slideshow today was really comprehensive, really informative. I like the survey. Got some feedback on the survey from people in the area too. They were happy to be able to participate in that. Caused some heavy debate at a family birthday party yesterday when some of us were saying half of us go back to school and the other half there were saying no, nobody can go. So love the ideas. Interested to hear the outcome on the questions that we posed tonight.
Robin?
I don't have much. It just dawns on me all the time, but I don't say it out loud, is that I'm just really glad that we as a board are the group that we are, because I think we just work really well together. And I don't think going into a year like this, I would want to be with anybody else. So thank you to the rest of the board members, and thank you to Dr. Graham for all his hard work.
Is Glenn on with us? Sue, do you know?
So
Okay. No? You're muted. No.
I don't see him, Ashley.
Okay. So I just want to echo what everyone has said so far and thank the school administration, thank Dr. Graham, thank just all of the parents that have spent time on these committees and volunteered their time, the board members. Thank you to my colleagues for spending your time, giving your suggestions and your input. And I am really impressed with the amount of thought and planning that is going into this year and the safety precautions that are being put in place for the students. I really appreciate everything that you've done, taking the time to look at the bus schedule, to work on the density issues regarding students being transported to and from school, and just everything around this opening. I really appreciate the time, effort, and energy that's been put into it. We really do have wonderful teachers that have volunteered, support staff, parents, I mean, everyone. Great job. And I am looking forward to some of the answers to the questions that were posed this evening. And I just want to thank everybody for their time and efforts and energy on behalf of our students of Grand Island. And that's it. So we have Cheryl. Did you have anything to add for the roundtable?
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Ruby?
Nothing.
Did I miss anybody? Dr. Graham, then.
Yeah, thank you so
So
much.
let me just say, Glenn lost his Wi-Fi, but he didn't have anything to add. And I've already spoken enough, so I won't add anything at the end either.
Okay. Good. I just want to thank the board for the extension to my contract that was approved today. I love working with this board. I love working here in Grand Island. My family loves being on Grand Island. My son loves the high school. So this has been a great fit for the last 4 years, and I look forward to the next 5 years here in Grand Island.
Thank you, and congratulations. And we are very happy to have you here at Grand Island, Dr. Graham. We think you do an amazing job. I think, you're at so many things in the community, and you just are bleeding blue and white, and we love that. So thank you for all of your efforts on behalf of our students. With that, I guess we can adjourn the regular board meeting at, this was a late one, sorry, 9:59 p.m. Can I have a motion to do that?
I'll motion.
In a second?
I'll second.
I can second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0.